This is an overview of MapStory Local. There's also a follow-up video that's a how-to, both of which have companion documents that you might want to open up and follow. If you're watching this video embedded in a site, this is just an example. You can click on YouTube here, and it'll open up the video in YouTube, and below the video you'll see a description, and there should be links in there where you can do it. So it's just below the video in YouTube. The goal of MapStory Local is to map all of human settlement through all of human history. So just as you would see in Google Maps or OpenStreetMap, you would be able to, let's say, type in a year like 1900 or 5000 BC or whatever and just animate it from there. So we've demonstrated this with one town. This is Ames, Iowa in Google Maps. As you know, you can change the overlays and everything. You can zoom in, zoom out, get directions. This can be viewed anywhere, as you've probably experienced. So you can go to MapStory. This is the main page of MapStory, and you can open up OpenStreetMap in MapStory. So this is Ames, Iowa, once again, and we took all the data, all the roads and buildings, and much more than you actually see, like land parcels and other things, and we overlaid it. So you can see just everything is just right on top of where it would be in OpenStreetMap. But you'd want to turn that background off so you can see just the MapStory data. So you can watch this video. This is Ames from the time it was founded. I'll just speed it up here. Ames was founded in somewhere around 1863. This is where it was, the area where it started, and it just kind of branched out this way and also west. You can only see a part of the city here, and this is the Iowa State University's campus. It'd be good to show a closer video as well, so you can actually kind of see what's going on. These are all the orange, all the orange shapes. You can kind of make them out a little bit more. Those are the buildings, and the blue lines are the roads, obviously. So you can also add annotations to your map. That's events or eras, like periods of time, which show up both in a timeline on the bottom here that you can scroll back and forth, and also on the map. And in the map you can show it both located with the event where it happened and just kind of on the side somewhere for kind of general events or information. So far I've added about like 45 events and periods of time. You can add as many as you want, and in the future we'll be able to add videos, all kinds of embedded content, narrations, and perhaps even it'll be able to zoom in and zoom out and pan while narrations are going on, and you can build any kind of thing you want. But in the meantime, as of now, you can add as many annotations as you want. Believe it or not, with MapStory, it's actually pretty easy. All you have to do is, once you have the data, simply upload it, and it will animate everything for you. So for each building, let's say, there's simply a date listed, and if it says 1896, it'll appear in 1896. If it says 1903, it'll appear in 1903, etc. And getting the data is easier than you think. You simply call your local assessor and do it. I believe that we can map every city in the world pretty rapidly, actually. especially in the United States, because all the data is already there, so you can upload it and already have it done for you pretty quickly. So the goal will be to combine all of this into one gigantic map for the whole world that you can type in a year and see the way the world was then and explore it as you please. And it'll be kind of a base map story of sorts where you can see any kind of a map story and see it in the context of the time that it was in. Now for this data, it's of all of the buildings that exist currently when they were built and all the roads that exist currently, all the current features. So most of the features that exist today, you can just simply do through a day's worth of work. That's 80% of what exists today. You can simply have mapped in a day. But if you want to go further back, see all the buildings that were created and destroyed for which there's a record of, you would have to use old maps. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to have to use Google Earth. This is Ames in Google Earth. This is the map story, all the data in Google Earth. I'm going to fast forward here, go forward, and zoom in. And here we are in downtown. Let me go back in time. Okay. This is an 1875 map of Ames. I'm going to delete that. You can see that there's a map. This is precisely where those roads are, those original roads. We can go forward in time a little bit. You can see that I simply drew over or corrected the dates for these roads here that were here, and also they have the parcels as well. So you can see that, and then you can see it just continues to animate there. I did this for a few maps. I also did it for I also gave the example of a building here. This is aerial photography from 1930. This building here, this is part of Iowa State's campus where they actually purified all the uranium that went into the Manhattan Project. It was raised later on. The building was raised. So we'll remove that and go back in time, and you can see I simply drew over it. I have not yet drawn the original shape of this when this was around, so they overlap here. So we already had dates listed for all the parcels, basically, and from that we derived the buildings. For the roads, you're not going to get dates attached to it, for the most part. That's explained a little bit more in the how-to section. But as far as the roads, I'm going to remove everything else but the roads, so we can just focus on that. We built a tool that takes the earliest date for the adjacent parcels along roads and simply generates the map of the road from that. So you can see the roads changing over time as they were built. This was all generated just from the parcels. So over here you can see it's a little bit sparse in the beginning. It's pretty random in the very beginning, because those are the oldest buildings in Ames along those roads. And as time goes on, it becomes more clear, because those were farmhouses, or they were older buildings were destroyed and new ones were built. So over time, it becomes a little bit more cohesive and clear. By 1950, it becomes pretty clear, and then it moves on pretty sequentially. We also added the city limits. I'll just show that. It's better to remove this white background here and show the city limits, so you can see how they changed over time. It gets pretty detailed at this point. The city actually had this available. Of course, once again, you'd have to draw it from old maps and old records to really know how the city limits expanded. And the next thing is the parcels. That is the properties along which the buildings were built. This is the layer that you're going to get. You're going to get the parcels, and the buildings are just kind of drawn on top of the parcels. And you're going to have to derive the dates from the parcels. We'll explain that in detail in the how-to section. So parcels are actually kind of interesting in the sense that the year built date does not necessarily accurately reflect when the parcel was created. So in the beginning, there might be a farmhouse over here, and that the farm might have been this big, and then the farm was sold to somebody and then subdivided and subdivided. So what you're going to have is the last date or the earliest date that is recorded for each property, the earliest date that they were sold. And you'll see here, people sell properties, people sell properties and they buy properties, and it's all pretty random for the most part. As far as parcels are concerned, we actually do have records going back, and you probably will too. Our recorder, the Story County recorder, we had to talk to the county. They have every parcel, every record of every property that has existed since the founding of the county. So every farm that existed in the 1840s and 50s and 60s when it started, basically how it would have looked and been subdivided over time. People will rubber sheet all those images in over the coming months and years, and we'll have a very complete picture. We'll have a much more complete picture of how Ames grew and changed over time. It's probably about 100,000 pages, and a fraction of which are actual property drawings. So the last major layer we're going to show are actual people. We've actually started to draw people. Click on this here, and let's go back to 1921. Okay. You'll see that there's all these dots that appear here. These are all listings of people. Basically, what we did was you click on the dot here, and you click there. You'll see this person, Marion Kennedy, lived at 627 8th Street. She was a nurse at Dr. Budge's office. Okay, and these other dots are other people who lived in her house. This is Francis Churchill. He was a professor in the Farm, Crops, and Soils department, I guess, at Iowa State College, which is what it was called at that time. Basically, what we did was we scanned the 1921 directory, OCR'd it to convert the images into text, and then took the text and used a code that people at our local hackerspace developed in Ames. And we simply put it into a database and instantly mapped it. So I've estimated that with all the directories and phone books available at the Ames Historical Society going back to 1917, it would take about 40 hours of scanning. However, we're looking at ways to automate this process. There are actually book scanning machines that do thousands of pages an hour. This one does like 3,000 pages an hour without human labor. That one's like $100,000, but people have made pretty simple, cheap DIY scanners that, again, we might build at our hackerspace and document for MapStory Local. All in all, if you did this, once you knew how to use the scanner and set it up and everything, I think that it would take probably, 15 hours to scan a whole city's phone books in human labor. So that's only the beginning of MapStory Local. There are additional features that could be developed in the long term, like here's an image I added. You simply put in, go into Google Street View here. You go towards this image. Onondaga Street is what Main Street used to be called in Ames, and you can see Main Street here, the very edge of Main Street. You can see how it looks here. Just keep that in mind. We're going to click on this image here. And you will then see the image appearing exactly where it was. This is a historic image. You can see these horses and buggies, and it was a dirt road. This building doesn't exist anymore, but all these do. And you can exit the photo, and then you can see that's the way it is now. But something like that is much further in the future. MapStory is a gigantic effort for the developers. It's huge. I mean, it's like you're creating a whole new open source program from scratch, and we're still adding some essential features like Rubber Sheeter, but also versioned editing, which is absolutely essential, where you can where people can collaborate on mapping and revert edits and such, like you do in Wikipedia, and this playback can be smoother. We should be able to add more and more layers, etc.